Chosen one. There is something about you that people notice before you ever speak a single word. Perhaps you've sensed it but never fully understood what it meant. The lingering stares, the unexpected quiet, the subtle shift in the atmosphere. Whenever you step into a room, eyes follow you, yet conversations often fade into silence. Deep within your heart, one question keeps returning. Why does this happen? Listen closely. Chosen one. Because this is no coincidence. You have arrived at this message at exactly the right moment in your journey. Heaven has guided you here so that what once felt mysterious can now begin to make sense. There are seasons when God surrounds a person with silence, not because they have been forgotten, but because they are being guarded, prepared, and transformed. What you have been experiencing carries a meaning that reaches far beyond what can be seen. Anointed one. God has placed something upon your life that others recognize in their spirit, even if they cannot find the words to explain it. There is a quiet strength within your presence, a calm authority, and a depth that causes people to stop, observe, and think before they respond. As Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, there is a season for every purpose under heaven. This is the season when hidden understanding begins to emerge. Remain with this message. Chosen one. Because what you are about to discover may finally reveal the reason behind the silence that has followed you. Stay with these words just a little longer. Chosen one. Because the events unfolding around your life are far from random. There are times when God allows certain patterns to repeat until their purpose becomes impossible to ignore. The lingering looks, the unexpected stillness when you arrive. The moments when someone meets your eyes yet chooses not to speak, they are not empty moments without meaning. These are not random encounters drifting through your day without purpose. Something deeper is happening in the unseen layer of life. If what you are hearing touches something inside your spirit, let it be known quietly. You may even place the number 444 inches, the comments, as a small declaration that your heart recognizes divine protection. Sometimes simple acts of agreement strengthen the atmosphere around your life. Chosen one. Take a slow breath and allow your mind to settle. What you have been experiencing is not imagination. It is not social awkwardness or coincidence repeating itself. There is something upon your life that human eyes cannot measure. Yet human spirits can feel immediately throughout history. When God entrusted someone with a purpose, He placed a kind of invisible weight upon them, not a crown of pride, not a badge of superiority, a mark of assignment. This mark does not shout for attention. It does not introduce itself loudly, yet, wherever it moves, the atmosphere subtly changes. That is why you can walk into a room quietly and still notice the shift. You did not raise your voice. You did not demand recognition, yet the room felt your arrival. People sometimes stare because something inside them is adjusting to your presence. You see, chosen one. Most people are used to environments filled with noise, insecurity, and performance. Many enter spaces trying to be noticed. They talk quickly. They explain themselves repeatedly. They fill silence because silence exposes uncertainty. But when someone walks in carrying stillness, depth, and internal clarity, the rhythm changes, and that is where you come in. You have learned, often through difficult seasons, how to remain steady even when life was not. You may remember moments when you felt alone in your growth, times when silence surrounded you, times when you had to sit with your thoughts, your prayers, your questions. Those quiet seasons were not empty. They were forming something inside you. God was building an anchor. Now, when you walk into spaces, that anchor travels with you. And stability, in a world that often feels emotionally chaotic, can be unsettling to people who have never learned it. This is why some watch you carefully, not because you are strange, because you are unfamiliar. You are not loud enough for them to dismiss you as attention-seeking. You are not weak enough for them to overlook you. And you are not easily categorized by their usual expectations. So, they observe, they study, they try to understand what they are sensing. Chosen one. Listen carefully to this truth because it will free you from many unnecessary doubts. The silence you receive from others is not rejection. Very often, it is recognition mixed with uncertainty. When people sense quiet authority, they instinctively slow down. They measure their words. They watch your responses. Even if they cannot explain it consciously, something within them feels exposed by your presence. Not because you are judging them, but because authenticity tends to reveal what pretense tries to hide, and authenticity cannot be faked. That is part of what heaven has cultivated within you. Integrity, restraint, depth. These qualities are not built overnight. They are formed through pressure, through misunderstood seasons, through prayers spoken in private rooms where no one else heard them. Some of you listening right now remember those nights clearly, when you were trying to understand your direction, when you wondered if your quiet growth even mattered. It mattered because those seasons created the stability people sense when you walk into a space today. Chosen one. There is another reason people sometimes stare without speaking. Your presence interrupts patterns they are used to. Many people operate from habit. They move through conversations automatically. They expect predictable responses. But when they encounter someone who carries calm awareness, their internal rhythm shifts. Suddenly they slow down. They watch. They become quiet. Not because you threatened them, but because something within them is recalibrating. And here is something important you must understand. The discomfort some people feel around you is not cruelty. It is contrast. Light reveals what darkness prefers to keep hidden, and revelation always creates a pause. Yet that same presence attracts a different kind of attention as well. There are people who look at you and feel safe without knowing why. Something in your stillness steadies them. They may never say it out loud, but they sense peace near you. Others stare because their conscience is awakening, and some simply recognize strength that does not need to prove itself. You must learn to sit peacefully in that reality. Chosen one. You do not need to shrink yourself so others feel more comfortable. You were not shaped to dilute what God placed within you. Pressure refined you. Silence matured you. Misunderstanding strengthened you. And now when you move through the world, the residue of that process moves with you. You are not intimidating because you are aggressive. You are unsettling because you are grounded. You are not watched because you are unusual. You are watched because you are rare. In a world where emotional instability has become normal, steady presence feels unfamiliar. But there is something even deeper happening beneath those silent glances. Something many people do not realize at first. Because sometimes silence is not confusion at all. Sometimes silence is recognition. And in the next part of this message, Chosen One, we will uncover what happens when one spirit recognizes another before a single word is spoken. Chosen one. There is a moment that happens in human encounters that most people cannot explain with logic. It happens quickly. Often within seconds, no introduction is needed. No conversation has begun. Yet something inside the other person becomes alert. They look at you, sometimes longer than expected, and then they become quiet. This moment is not social hesitation. It is spiritual recognition. There is a level of perception that lives beneath language, beneath personality, beneath all the surface traits people use to define one another. Spirit recognizes spirit long before the mind organizes the experience into words. That is why some of the stares you receive feel different. They carry weight, they carry curiosity. Sometimes they even carry a quiet reverence. And yet the person says nothing because recognition without understanding often produces silence. Chosen one. When someone encounters a presence that their mind cannot immediately categorize, their system pauses. Most people are used to reading others quickly. They assess clothing, tone of voice, social signals. Within seconds, they usually know how to behave. But when they meet someone whose presence carries depth, the normal patterns stop working. Their spirit senses something, but their mind does not yet have the language for it. So they watch. You may have experienced this many times without realizing what was happening. Perhaps you went into a workplace meeting and noticed someone quietly observing you across the table. Maybe you sat in a waiting room and felt someone glance at you repeatedly, only to look away when your eyes met. Perhaps you walked into a gathering where conversations slowed for a moment before continuing. Chosen one. These moments are not always about curiosity. They are moments of spiritual processing. The truth is that your presence communicates things long before you speak, not through effort, but through frequency. Your spirit carries a certain alignment that others feel even when they cannot explain it. And that alignment disrupts the patterns many people rely on to navigate the world. For some, that disruption feels peaceful. For others, it feels uncomfortable. There are people who stare at you because something inside them recognizes safety. They sense integrity in your presence. They feel that you are not performing. You are simply being. In a world where many interactions are transactional or guarded, authenticity becomes magnetic. These individuals may not say anything immediately, but inside they feel relief. Yet, there is another group who reacts differently. Some people stare because your presence exposes what they're trying to hide from themselves. People who rely on manipulation, pretensi, or emotional masks often feel unsettled around individuals who carry discernment. They cannot quite explain why they feel cautious, but they sense that their usual strategies will not work, so they remain silent. Not out of respect necessarily, but out of uncertainty. You see, chosen one, truth carries a kind of gravity. It does not need to argue. It does not need to dominate the room. Its mere presence invites honesty, and honesty can be uncomfortable for those who are not ready for it. That is why some people who encounter you appear nervous or guarded, even when you have done nothing unusual. They feel as if something about them is visible. And in a way it is, not because you're analyzing them or judging them, but because your spirit has learned to perceive what many ignore. Discernment often develops in those who have walked through deep personal refinement. You learn to read situations carefully because life required it. You learn to listen beneath words because experience taught you that not everything spoken reflects the truth. God was sharpening something inside you, and now that sensitivity functions almost automatically. Chosen one. If this realization is resonating with you, take a moment to acknowledge it. A simple like on this video can quietly signal your agreement, and if these messages continue to bring clarity to your journey, consider subscribing so you do not miss future guidance meant specifically for those walking this path. But let us go deeper. Fear also plays a role in the silence you encounter. Not fear of harm, but fear of exposure. When someone senses that another person operates with clarity, they instinctively become more careful. Those who are used to controlling conversations suddenly slow down. Those who are accustomed to manipulating perceptions hesitate. Even people who simply carry unresolved insecurity may feel uneasy because they cannot easily influence how you see them. Chosen one. This dynamic can sometimes create confusion for you. You may wonder why some individuals are drawn toward you, while others withdraw without explanation. But the truth is simple. Not everyone is aligned with the frequency your life now carries. Some people approach because they recognize growth. Others distance themselves because that same growth challenges their comfort. And neither reaction is necessarily personal. It is simply alignment revealing itself. You are not responsible for making everyone comfortable with truth. You are not required to reduce your clarity so others feel less exposed. God did not cultivate your discernment so you could silence it. He cultivated it so you could walk wisely. There is another layer to this recognition that you must understand. Silence itself often becomes a test. Some people watch you quietly to see how you respond to attention. They want to know whether you become anxious, defensive, or overly eager to explain yourself. And when you remain calm, when you remain steady, when you allow the moment to exist without rushing to fill it, something powerful happens. You pass the test. Your composure confirms that the strength they sensed was real. Chosen one. Release the habit of interpreting every glance you receive. Not every stare requires analysis. Not every silence needs explanation. Sometimes these moments are simply evidence that God has placed something upon your life that others can feel but cannot yet comprehend. And that alone is enough. You may have noticed another interesting pattern as well. There are certain people you meet and immediately feel peace around. You may not know their story. You may have exchanged only a few words, yet something inside you relaxes. At other times you meet someone who appears friendly, yet something in your spirit becomes cautious. This is the same principle working in reverse. Spirit recognizes spirit. Your inner awareness is communicating long before your intellect has processed the situation. Do not ignore these signals. They are part of the guidance system God placed within you. Discernment is not judgment. It is protection. Many chosen ones were once told that their instincts were wrong. Perhaps you heard phrases like, "You are overthinking," or "You are being too cautious." Over time, those messages can cause people to doubt their own spiritual sensitivity. But let this truth settle in your heart today. Your ability to sense what others overlook is not a flaw. It is a gift. It allows you to navigate environments that might otherwise drain your energy or distort your direction. And the more you honor that gift, the clearer it becomes. Because when spirit recognizes spirit, something powerful happens. The noise of appearances fades away, and truth begins to rise to the surface. Yet, there is another lesson hidden inside the silence surrounding you. Chosen one. A lesson that has less to do with others and much more to do with your own spiritual growth. In the next part, we will uncover why the silence around you is not just about recognition. It is also preparation, a chosen one. There is a truth that many people only discover after walking through long seasons of quiet observation from others. The silence around you is not merely something happening to you. It is something happening for you. God often teaches his deepest lessons in environments where noise fades and observation increases. When people speak constantly around you, it becomes easy to rely on their reactions for direction. But when silence surrounds you, something else begins to develop inside your spirit. Self-reliance. Not the kind rooted in pride, but the kind rooted in alignment. You may remember earlier seasons of your life when silence felt uncomfortable, when someone stopped speaking or seemed distant. Your mind immediately began searching for explanations. Perhaps you wondered if you had done something wrong. Maybe you felt pressure to explain yourself, to clarify your intentions, or to repair an imagined misunderstanding. Many people were conditioned this way. They were taught that silence meant disapproval. They were taught that if others grew quiet, something must be fixed immediately. But God sometimes uses silence to break that pattern, because when external voices fall quiet, something remarkable happens. Your attention begins to shift inward and upward. Instead of chasing human validation, you begin listening more carefully for divine direction. Chosen one. Silence becomes a training ground. It removes the constant feedback loop of approval and criticism that most people unconsciously rely on. Without that noise, you begin discovering who you are without needing constant confirmation. And that discovery is powerful. There comes a moment when you realize that your peace no longer depends on whether others speak favorably about you. Your sense of direction no longer relies on how quickly people acknowledge your growth. You learn to stand calmly in your assignment. Even when others are still observing from a distance, that is maturity. Silence also sharpens discernment. When conversations slow down and reactions become less obvious, you begin noticing patterns you might otherwise miss. You see who approaches you with genuine intention and who appears only when they need something. You recognize who respects your boundaries and who quietly tests them. Silence gives you space to observe without interference. Chosen one. This is why many spiritually sensitive people pass through seasons where social interactions feel quieter than expected. It is not punishment. It is preparation. God is training you to carry influence without being controlled by influence. He is teaching you how to remain steady even when recognition is delayed. Because when recognition eventually arrives, the foundation inside you must already be strong enough to handle it. Think about the wilderness seasons described throughout Scripture. Before leadership emerged, there was often a period of isolation, reflection, and quiet growth. Moses spent years in the desert before standing before Pharaoh. David tended sheep in obscurity before wearing a crown. Even Jesus withdrew into the wilderness before beginning his public ministry. The pattern is consistent. Silence precedes visible authority. Chosen one. Your quiet seasons are not wasted chapters. They are forming the stability that others will eventually rely upon. And during these seasons, something else is quietly happening as well. God is filtering your environment. You may have noticed that certain relationships naturally faded during times when you grew quieter or more focused on your path. At first, this can feel confusing, even painful. You might wonder why some people who once felt close slowly drifted away, but silence reveals alignment. Those who remain present, even when you are not performing for attention, are often the ones who truly value you. They do not require constant explanation. They respect your process. They allow space for your growth. These individuals become part of your foundation. Meanwhile, others gradually disappear. not necessarily because of conflict, but because their connection depended on a version of you that no longer exists, and that is okay. Chosen one. God is not removing people to punish you. He is clearing space for relationships that align with where your life is going, not where it used to be. Silence is the doorway through which that filtering occurs. You also begin to notice something else during this season. Your inner voice becomes clearer. When external noise decreases, your sensitivity to spiritual guidance increases. Thoughts that once felt scattered begin forming into direction. Intuition becomes sharper. You start sensing which opportunities deserve your energy and which ones should be released. This clarity is one of the greatest gifts silence provides, because a person who knows their direction cannot be easily distracted. And distraction is one of the most common ways potential is delayed. Chosen one. There is a maturity that only silence can cultivate. When you no longer depend on constant conversation, you start hearing God more clearly. When you no longer feel the need to explain every moment of silence, you begin hearing the quiet truth your spirit has been revealing all along. Peace with stillness becomes part of who you are. While that kind of calm may leave some people uncomfortable, it is the very place where your strength continues to grow. And remember this, chosen one. The silence surrounding your life is not your destination. It is a season of preparation. Imagine a field being carefully cleared before new life is planted. At first glance, it appears empty, almost lifeless, yet beneath the surface, unseen work is already taking place. God is making room for what is coming, removing distractions and quieting voices that could have influenced your identity before its proper time. When the work He is doing within you is finally revealed, everything around you will begin to shift. But before that moment arrives, there is another truth heaven wants you to understand. Chosen one. There is a strength within you that you have only begun to discover. In the next part of this message, you will see why others can sense that strength long before you ever speak. What has been growing inside you did not appear overnight. It was shaped little by little through seasons of pressure, perseverance, and quiet endurance. Every challenge, every delay, every moment that required greater wisdom and deeper faith became part of the foundation God was building within you. Now that invisible transformation is beginning to reveal itself in ways that words cannot fully describe, the reason people often respond to your presence before hearing your voice is because genuine authority does not depend on making itself known. Real strength rarely announces its arrival. It does not compete for attention or seek recognition. It simply exists. And its presence alone changes the atmosphere. You have probably experienced this more than once. Chosen one. You step into a conversation, and suddenly people become more thoughtful, more measured, and more intentional with the words they choose. Sometimes you express a simple thought, and the room becomes quiet as others process what you said. Sometimes someone studies your expression as if trying to understand something deeper than the moment itself. These are signs of quiet influence. Influence is different from popularity. Popularity depends on approval. Influence comes from presence. One fades quickly, the other grows over time. You carry a kind of presence that makes people reconsider their approach. They measure their tone. They observe your reactions. They become aware of themselves in ways they may not normally be. This is not arrogance. It is the natural result of authenticity in a world where much communication is shaped by performance. Most people spend a great deal of energy trying to appear confident, knowledgeable, or successful. But authenticity carries a different energy. It does not try to convince anyone of its value. It simply reveals itself through consistency, and consistency creates credibility. Chosen. One part of your influence comes from restraint. You do not rush to prove every point. You do not feel compelled to explain every decision. You do not respond to every criticism or challenge that appears in your path. That restraint speaks loudly. When someone sees a person who does not react impulsively, they begin to sense depth. They begin to realize that there is more beneath the surface than what is immediately visible. This is why some people observe you carefully. They are trying to understand the strength they sense. But here is something many chosen ones struggle with. Because this quiet influence begins to grow before you consciously recognize it. You may feel uncomfortable with your own strength. Perhaps you were raised to believe that standing out could make others uncomfortable. Maybe you heard messages suggesting that confidence was arrogance, or that leadership should always remain hidden to avoid drawing attention. So, you learned to soften your presence. You tried to blend in. You reduced your voice in situations where your insight could have helped others. You made yourself smaller, so that the room could feel more balanced. But God is dismantling that habit. The strength placed inside you was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to be stewarded. Stewardship does not mean dominance. It does not mean controlling others or demanding recognition. It means using what has been given to serve a greater purpose. Power in its pure form is not about superiority. It is about responsibility. And the responsibility placed upon your life is becoming clearer with time. Chosen one. There is a reason your path has required patience. Rapid influence without inner maturity often destroys the very person who receives it. History is filled with individuals who gained visibility before their character was ready to carry it. God does not operate that way. He refines first. He strengthens foundations. He allows the hidden years to do their work before the visible years begin. You have walked through those hidden years, through moments when it felt like your growth was unnoticed, through seasons where your efforts did not receive immediate acknowledgement, through times when you wondered if your quiet persistence mattered at all. It mattered, because every one of those seasons added weight to your presence, and that weight is what people feel when they encounter you now. Chosen one. You do not need to force this influence to grow. Influence built on authenticity expands naturally. It develops through consistent actions, steady character, and alignment with purpose. That is why people often sense your direction, even when you have not explained it. They see it in how you move, in how you respond to pressure, in how you choose patience when others rush to reward reaction. These qualities signal something deeper than ambition. They signal purpose. There is another layer to this influence that you must understand. Some people observe you because they are assessing how to relate to you. They want to know whether you will challenge their comfort or reinforce it. They are measuring whether your presence will require growth from them. Growth can be inspiring, but it can also be intimidating. That is why some individuals celebrate your strength, while others quietly resist it. Both reactions are natural, but neither reaction should determine how you walk your path. Your responsibility is not to manage how everyone feels about your growth. Your responsibility is to remain obedient to the direction God has placed before you. And obedience often requires courage. Courage to remain steady, even when others misunderstand your intentions. Courage to speak when silence would be easier. Courage to remain silent when wisdom requires restraint. I'm chosen. 1. Many of you listening right now are only beginning to realize the influence your life carries. You may still see yourself through the lens of earlier seasons when you were searching for direction. But the reality has changed. The growth that took place quietly is now shaping the environment around you. Your words carry more weight than before. Your presence influences even when you say little. Your perspective begins shifting how others see situations. This is not something you created alone. It is something placed inside you, and the more faithfully you steward it, the more clearly it will serve the people you encounter. Yet with influence comes another challenge that many chosen ones must face. When others begin observing you more closely, the temptation arises to explain yourself constantly, to clarify every decision, to defend every step. But that habit can weaken the very authority you carry. Because not everything God is doing in your life is meant for public explanation. And in the next part, Chosen One, we will uncover why silence is sometimes the strongest boundary you can hold as your purpose continues to unfold. Chosen One, there is a stage in every spiritual journey where a person must learn the power of not explaining everything. This lesson often arrives quietly, usually after years of trying to be understood by everyone around you. There was likely a time in your life when you felt responsible for clarifying every decision you made. When someone questioned your direction, you explained your reasons. When someone misunderstood your motives, you tried to repair the perception. You believed that if people only understood your heart, everything would settle. But life has probably taught you something different by now. Not everyone is meant to understand every part of your path. And that realization can feel both freeing and uncomfortable at the same time. Chosen One. The truth is that some movements of God in your life are sacred. They are not designed for public explanation or constant analysis. They are meant to remain between you and the one who placed the vision within you. When you feel compelled to reveal every detail of what God is forming in your life, you sometimes expose fragile beginnings to opinions that were never meant to shape them. Silence becomes protection. It protects your peace from unnecessary debate. It protects your vision from premature criticism. And it protects your energy from conversations that lead nowhere. There is a powerful shift that occurs when a person stops over-explaining their life. When you stop offering constant justification, something interesting happens in your environment. People begin to realize that access to your inner world is not automatic. They begin to respect the boundaries you hold around your time, your attention, and your decisions. Chosen One. Boundaries are not barriers created from pride. They are structures created from wisdom. You may remember moments when you shared something deeply personal with someone who did not carry the maturity to hold it carefully. Perhaps they misunderstood it. Perhaps they used the information to criticize or control you. Experiences like that teach you why not every revelation belongs in every conversation. Even Jesus spoke of this principle when he said not to cast pearls before those who cannot recognize their value. Your insights, your plans, your calling. These are pearls, and pearls deserve protection. That does not mean becoming distant or cold. It means becoming discerning. You learn to recognize who approaches your life with genuine care and who approaches with curiosity alone. You share openly with those who honor what you reveal, and you remain quiet with those who have not yet shown that level of respect. Chosen One. There is freedom in allowing some people to wonder. You do not need to resolve every curiosity others have about you. Let them observe. Let them form their opinions. Let them take time to understand what your life represents. When you release the pressure to make sense to everyone, your energy returns to where it belongs. the work God placed before you, and that work is unfolding more clearly with every step you take. The silence you carry in certain moments is not weakness. It is strength under control. It signals that you are no longer driven by the need to prove yourself. Instead, you are guided by purpose. When someone stares at you and says nothing, do not rush to fill the space with explanation. Let the silence breathe. Let the moment exist as it is. Because, in many cases, that silence is doing work that words cannot accomplish. Some people are observing you to understand your direction. Some are waiting to see whether your calm is genuine. Some are realizing that the presence they sensed was not temporary, and slowly, quietly, something begins to change. Chosen one, the silence surrounding your life is not permanent. It is seasonal. Every season designed by God carries an expiration date. There comes a moment when preparation becomes visible, when the quiet strength you have carried begins producing results that others can no longer ignore. At first, the shift is subtle. People begin speaking to you differently. The tone of conversations changes. Questions replace assumptions. Those who once observed quietly may approach with curiosity. Those who once underestimated you may begin reconsidering their earlier judgments. But here is the important truth. The shift does not happen because you forced recognition. It happens because time reveals what consistency has been building. God often protects his chosen ones from premature praise and premature criticism. If recognition came too early, it might distort your direction. If criticism arrived before your confidence matured, it might discourage you from continuing. So God allows observation. He allows time, and in that time, he strengthens you. O chosen one, when the shift begins, guard your heart carefully. Recognition can be as dangerous as rejection if it leads to pride. Remember that influence is not the goal. Alignment is the goal. Recognition is simply the byproduct of obedience sustained over time. There may come a day when those who once watched quietly begin asking for your perspective. When conversations that once ignored your presence begin seeking your voice, when people who once remained distant begin listening carefully to what you say, do not rush that moment. Let it unfold naturally. Your growth does not need announcement. It reveals itself through steady action and consistent character, and when visibility finally becomes safe, God knows exactly how to bring it into your life. Until then, remain patient. Remain grounded. Speak when wisdom invites speech, and remain silent when peace invites stillness, because one day you will look back and realize something remarkable. The silence that once made you question yourself was never meant to diminish you. It was preparing you for the weight of being heard. Remain steadfast. Chosen one, keep your heart aligned with the direction God has set before you. The change you have been waiting for has already begun, and when it is fully revealed, you will recognize it not through excitement or commotion, but through a deep and lasting peace. Take a moment to rest in this truth. Chosen one, nothing you have experienced has been meaningless. What once appeared to be confusion was, in reality, a season of preparation. The quiet glances, the interrupted conversations, the silence that often surrounded your presence were never evidence that something was lacking in you. They were signs that your life carries spiritual significance. And wherever true significance is present, people naturally pause before they respond. You were never called to pursue validation from those who are still searching for their own identity. God allowed the silence around you so your foundation could become unshakable. Your discernment could grow stronger, and your confidence could be rooted in Him instead of in the opinions of others. Anointed One, this is a season of divine alignment. Even when people cannot explain what they sense about you, heaven already understands exactly what has been entrusted to your life. Remain humble. Stay faithful. Continue moving forward with wisdom, confidence, and a willing heart. The same God who led you through the quiet season is now leading you into a season of greater understanding. Every step has been intentional, and every moment has carried purpose beyond what you could see. If this message has spoken directly to your spirit today, you may write 444 inches the comments as a simple expression of your faith in God's protection, guidance, and purpose over your life. And if this message has encouraged your heart, stay connected with this channel so you can continue receiving the messages prepared for the path God is unfolding before you. Move forward with peace. Chosen One, your journey is known, your calling is becoming clearer, and heaven is faithfully directing each step you take.